are out here only trying to have women and have no emotional connection, they're weirdos. A lot of this red pill, how to get girls stuff, a lot of them are like that as well. They're like the peak masculine life is just to have a bunch of women that you barely know, and that's stupid. That's fucking ridiculous, right? Every man, if you want to have a good life, you need to have a good relationship with a good woman. When you get sick, it's your woman who's going to care, not your boys, right? But you can love her and she can love you with all her heart. You can love each other. You can be prepared to take a bullet for her. Yeah. And still got the bitches.
That's what I'm saying.
It's not a big deal. You gotta do what you gotta do.
That's him with his wife, by the way.
I think you're going to agree with my answer. It is which red pill guy do you think is the biggest dork, etc., etc. They are all talking about me right now. All the ones who have criticized me, all the ones who have criticized Andrew, and they're talking about me and making videos about me, despite begging to be in my organizations, begging to be on my podcasts, begging me to be on their podcasts for ages, because me and Andrew are now far more relevant than they could ever dream of being. I'm not going to say any of their names, because that's exactly what they want when they try to bait me by making stupid videos. They want me to sit here and be like, well, this guy said, I don't care.
Guys, I can't say that I'm...
All right, cool. So when you hear this, and I'm sure you have a lot of respect.
These are actually older videos.
Yeah, I know. This is not exactly, he didn't shoot this video yesterday in honor of this episode, but these are things that he said, that Tristan have said, Sneako's starting to say these things.
Sure.
I think one can argue there's so many benefits of understanding, red pill, you've said it, you've described it as the truth and understanding how men and women operate. But when you even see these types of comments or what Sneako's saying these days or what Destiny has to say, I guess how bulletproof is the red pill ideology, or what you call praxeology. What are your thoughts on these types of comments?
Well, okay, so these kinds of things go in cycles. During 2016 election cycle, everybody who wanted some sort of relevancy in a political sense, they were called the alt-right, but the alt-right wanted to be red pill. So if you look at Candace Owens and you go and you look at her Twitter profile from back in 2015, 2016, she was called Red Pill Black.
Yep.
Now she's no longer that. She's Candace, but back in the day, it was, let's just say, brand-wise, it was expedient for her to use that, and there were a lot of other people who were using the same thing, who were doing the same thing. So a lot of people will come into this space, and they're not about the red pill praxeology, but they do realize that the manosphere, the red pill, whatever we're calling it, is a hot topic. I mean, half the reason why this show is here today is because I met you in February of 2022, Jedediah Bila as well. Now, I'm not claiming complete responsibility for your success, but you and her and several other people have gotten into this space because this is what people are talking about. This is where the popularity is. This is how you want to grow a channel. You want to grow your own personal brand. You start talking about intersexual dynamics because that's what people want to talk about. Now, what happens is that goes into cycles. So what I made this prediction on our year-end podcast with Rule Zero, which is the panel show that I do. And I said, by August of this year, you won't recognize the manosphere because everybody will have this mass exodus out of the manosphere, which is exactly what happens every election cycle that we go through. So what happens is people don't want to talk about that anymore, and they've got to find some convenient way to say, we never knew ye, or they want to distance themselves from the red pill so that they can start talking about the culture war. They want to talk about social issues. They can talk about what's going to probably be more popular than the manosphere, I would say, for the 2024 election cycle. So what we're seeing now is what I call tilling the fields. So everybody has to sort of set the groundwork so that they can be seen like they're more legitimate when the narrative, the cultural narrative, changes coming into the election cycle that's coming up. So you've seen this happen before. All of these people, like if you look at the roommates and Hafiz, you look at Abba and Preach, who came who wanted to be on Fresh and Fit. They were on there at least once or twice. You got the roommates who've been on there once or twice. You had even Kevin Samuels and all these other people who, up until about August of 2021, all were on board with this manosphere and this red pill stuff until Abba and Preach decided to go after Myron and Fresh, and then everybody tried to throw them under the bus. Now, to their credit, they have definitely weathered that storm, I should say. But again, people who didn't want to be associated with that found some convenient occasion for themselves so that they could exit, or they could not be as associated with the red pill as they used to be. So what I'm seeing now, at least as far as the manosphere is concerned and the red pill is concerned, is that you've got my tweet. Maybe my tweet set this off, but you've got Ben Shapiro, you've got a Matt Walsh, you've got Daily Wire, you've got PragerU, you've got all these people who are now doing all these clips of, say, whatever podcast or Fresh and Fit, and now they don't want to be a part of that, or they only want to be a part of it if it's something that they can pick and pull that works for their brand in the upcoming election cycle. So if we can talk about the red pill aspects that align with this new culture war narrative, then those are the parts that they're going to be okay with. But they also understand that their users and their audience and their voters and whatever else are all watching whatever podcast. We played to 35,000 live views when it was myself, Destiny, Sneako, and Mike just the other night. So don't tell me that they don't know that kind of market share exists out there, but they can't buy into it wholesale. So when I see Andrew Tate and Tristan Tate wanting to distance themselves from it, it's because their brand can no longer endure being associated with the red pill. So they've got to find some convenient ways to sort of wiggle out of like certain aspects of it. So people want to pick and pull the aspects that seem like they're pro-social or seem like they align with that narrative. That's why when in my tweet, nobody has a problem with, let's see, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Nobody has a problem with those articles, but they only have a problem with the articles that were, avoid marriage, family creation, vasectomy. Nobody said anything about the rest of that.
Would you consider,
because that aligns with that narrative.
Would you consider most aspects of Andrew Tate, Tristan Tate to be red pill-esque?
Red pill adjacent, for sure.
Okay.
Yes.
What about Sneako? He's switched up. He used to be all about that.
Okay, so Sneako is following what I call
Muslim, right?
He's following what I call the prodigal son narrative, and the prodigal son narrative it's like from the Bible, right? The prodigal son takes his father's inheritance and goes off into the wide world to blow it on hookers and blow, and then he loses it all, and he comes back to the family, and it's like Father God says, let's slay the fatted calf and let's throw a party for this guy, and all of the family. My son who was lost to me has now come back, so we're going to have a big party for that. The prodigal son narrative says more about the true believers than it does about the prodigal son, because what it is it's reaffirmation for the true believers who are in with that religion, that ideology, that political stripe, whatever it is. It doesn't have to be religion, but when the prodigal son becomes a grift and when it becomes something that's commercialized, you can go off, do your own thing, blow it all, and say, you know what, you got me. Sorry, you guys were right after all. Can I please come back to the family again? And they'll welcome you back with open arms, because they know that you can't say, I'm suspicious of whether this guy is really sincere about his coming back to the faith after all of this time, because they know it's unfalsifiable, and they know that if you question that, then you're not a true believer anymore, because that's what everybody wants to have, that reaffirmation. So when I see someone like, say, Roosh V, or I see someone like, like Sneako, for example, like suddenly it's very convenient to suddenly become a Muslim amongst all this time where it seems like that's going to align better with what's coming next, as opposed to what he's been about for a very long time, which is aligning himself with the red pillish version of the Tates, right? Let's be honest. I mean, they run a cam girl business. They have their entire brand has been based on having a main and then having side girls, which was just right there in the video.
Yeah.
Great, that's fine. That aligns with the red pill in certain aspects. But now that's sort of like inconvenient, ideologically inconvenient, now we're going to change our tune, and we're going to say, you know what, prodigal son returneth, and the true believers say, see, we were right all along, because this guy, who is the worst of the worst, came back to us, and now we're reaffirming our faith because that guy came back here. So you're saying
someone like Sneako is going to come back at some point?
No, I think that the reason why he's decided that he wants to be like religious, whether it's Muslim or Christian or whatever else, is because it's expedient for the narrative that is going on at the time. And the people who are the true believers are never going to say anything about it because it reaffirms their faith.
Now, the reason you know Rollo is because Andrew Tate reached out to you.
Yeah.
He saw that you were doing all your stuff in Vegas, I assume.
He introduced me to Justin Waller.
Okay, he introduced you to Waller. Waller introduced you to Rollo. The rest is history. But you've been studying
evolutionary psychology
for how many years?
Oh man, probably coming up on a decade now.
At least as long as me.
Okay, and did you read The Game back in the day, Neil
I know.
Strauss?
I actually know Neil Strauss. I took him out for his birthday.
Okay, so you've seen it, and you remember
and
the whole...
I know Mystery pretty well.
You know
too.
Mystery? No, I know. I know. And you've done Bilzerian.
Yeah, I know
like
Bilzerian.
meaning like
I
you've
know Dan,
done
yeah.
a podcast with him.
Yeah.
You haven't do Bilzerian. I don't mean like that. Nah, I don't know these days. He's everywhere. Obviously, you read The Rational Man. There's so many guys that have basically built it up to this. But have we ever seen anything like Andrew Tate?
No, of course not. I think he got more famous faster than anyone in the history of the world. I'll say that. I can't think of any, because anyone else who became, like if you think of like a Mary Lou Retton during the Olympics or something like that.
That's
who
a
became,
very vague 1980s reference.
Yeah,
yes.
but I'm just thinking about somebody who instantly became famous.
Yes.
Or even Marilyn Monroe. Marilyn Monroe became famous very, very quickly. They did not become this level of famous to where they were outdoing presidents, right? So that's what, he became more famous quicker than anyone in history. Just to put some context, that Tom Segura interview, he wasn't that he didn't even, I remember.
This was a year ago, I want to say.
No, the Tom Segura thing was way more than a year.
2 years ago?
Yeah, probably more than that. I texted him, I remember, I think the week that came out, he and I were texting back and forth, and he didn't even have 500,000 followers on Instagram at that point. So at that point, what he's saying is some of the guys in the red pill are choosing an unhealthy, what he believed to be an unhealthy way of going forward. And I don't disagree with that. Just having sex for sex sake with women without any connection, I think is unhealthy, but some people would say that would still fall under the purview of improving yourself as a man and doing red pill stuff. I don't look at any of that as being acrimonious towards red pill. The other thing is what Tristan, his comments were, these people were saying stuff behind my back and now they're coming forward and they are begging me to be on the show. Everything that Andrew and Tristan said in that video were accurate. But the problem is this, what's happened is, like I said before, the red pill, when you say red pill, or like, again, I believe in gravity as it is described in Principia, written in 1689 by Isaac Newton. That does not make me a gravityist. And I believe in evolution, in natural selection, as written by Charles Darwin, but that doesn't make me an evolutionist. Because I believe in red pill, I am red pill aware. I believe in certain concepts of that, but you could, so many of those concepts you could align with evolutionary psychology. So to me, that's where my basis comes from. Is it the truth? Can we find studies that show that there's differences between men and women? We talk about it in Red Pill, but the funny thing is there is an entire field of academics on this very subject called evolutionary psychology. Everyone will read The Game and everyone will watch YouTube clips and no one will read the fucking Evolution of Desire by David Buss. And I don't understand this still to this point. There are books and studies specifically talking about these concepts. The red pill is just a fun, digestible way of expressing these things. The truth is the truth. The red pill is...
But you can't be shocked that people are watching TikTok videos and YouTube shorts.
No, I'm not shocked.
Rather than reading
TLDR generation.
But I'm saying that's the difference.
That's the narrative. That's the whole thing today.
That's why Rollo and I get along, is because anything...
Because you guys can read.
If tomorrow, Jeffrey Wilson, who he's not a big fan of, came out with another book on evolutionary psychology... Jeff Miller, sorry. We would both read the fucking book. Every single book we can find on this subject, we're going to read and study. So we want to understand what the truth and what the science says. But the thing with Andrew, like, I just think that video was made to try to spread acrimony amongst the whole thing. This whole thing has turned into the WWE. It was Rollo and Michael versus Destiny and Sneako, and it looked like Battle Royal from
kayfabe is what it is.
From WrestleMania 6. And I get it. And we're doing this. And the reason why this is happening, the real thing that you should take from this is the statement that Richard Reeves said when he came on our program. He's a senior fellow at the Brookings Institute. He has a PhD. He used to work for the Deputy Prime Minister of the UK. And he said the reason why we're having this discussion and why Andrew Tate became so popular is because people in academics were not willing to have this discussion. If you want to know why Andrew Tate became so popular, is because there were feminists out there that were saying, men, you're patriarchy, you have demeaned us, you have put us down, you have oppressed us is what the word I'm looking for, and then your opinions don't matter anymore. And while that may be their opinion, the problem is those men still could vote, those men still could read, those men still had jobs, those men still had muscles, those men still had power, and no one listened to them. And the very idea that you could have an academic discussion talking about the dissolution of men as far as the workforce or the family or anything like that, you've been laughed off a campus for having that discussion. And so you do that for year after year after year. saying anyone saying that men have a 9 times higher suicide rate after they've been divorced, if you even have that discussion, or the fact that there are more female military pilots than there are male kindergarten teachers in the United States, or that 5% of psychologists in the United States under the age of 30, 5% are male. If you even have that discussion, you're laughed off of academics. You lose your tenure. I can show you, Satoshi Kanazawa is a great example. Lost his tenure because he started producing papers that described the differences between men and women on dating apps. And then because no one was willing to have a serious conversation about that, and I don't mean to say unserious people, but not professional people, people without PhDs started having this conversation because there was this massive void and there was this massive need. And there was all these guys who were 5'5", who were broke for whatever reason. They were being, they didn't have any girls, or they were being abused by, not abused by girls, but cheated on by women, or basically they were being cucked for whatever reason, right? They were being abused by the system and no one listened to them. And the very fact that you even mentioned that these people existed, were alive, was so offensive to so many people. Of course, Andrew Tate became the most famous person in the world. No one was willing to speak about this to the level that he was. And he went beyond. There are things that Andrew says that Rollo and I would never say on camera. I don't completely disagree with him, though. But I would never say this on camera. I have employees. Patrick Bet-David had a great statement the other day when he was talking. I don't know if he was talking about Sneako or someone else getting canceled. But he said, I have employees. There's things that I can't say on here because I have people who work for me. He has this freedom that we don't have to say certain things. Now, I don't agree with all of it. I don't agree with everything he says. But he is the best communicator I've seen in my lifetime. I wasn't alive during MLK. He's the best communicator I've seen for these ideas I've seen in my lifetime, and he has gotten more popular faster than any human I've ever seen in my life. That's the thing.
So if you like that clip, click right here to watch another, or if you want to watch the entire SOSCAST, click right here.